I'm Mr. Rosansky, and this is a speed run of practice test 6, the second module, the C module, the hard one. And we are going to get started with this puppy. I don't know about y'all, but I'm ready. So, this first conventions question seems to be right up our alleyway. We've got the omega consideration of verb. I've got a plural, a singular, and a singular. What a strong start. I'm going to bias the odd man out, go looking for a subject, go over my bridge, and land on recipes. Everything seems to be good there. I've got another conventions question. I'm going to check for my omega considerations, and nothing really pops. This thing is kind of bizarre. If I were to go through every single step, I land on the final four where I'm just kind of like looking for complete sentences on either side, treating this period like a semicolon, and I would say that there is a complete sentence on either side. I'll give you a little bit more so that you can see what's wrong with going on this. I think C is the most obvious wrong. C is wrong right here in this environment. I have a complete sentence to the left, and the moment I have this, I'm starting a new clause. Two independent clauses right in this environment cannot be joined by just a comma. That falls. Then you might say, Mr. Rosansky, this A solves that problem. By taking away the comma and the it is, I'm slapping a subordinated conjunction right after this independent clause, and I would grant you that. Sure, fine, everything's okay. However, the moment I get here, when I find my all light passing through the hole can only arrive and start a new independent clause, the problem then comes in this exact environment. A falls from that reason, and though we often say, all people say, like a colon can have anything to the right, complete sentence, and that's true, a fragment, and that's true, but not this thing, where we have a complete sentence that's fractured like this. This is disgusting. Additionally, there's this weird kind of tautological joining of what the colon means and the it is, but we can slice it the other way for the grammar reasons. We just land on this B. We're choosing the only one that allows us to join these two complete sentences because this problem here falls through. My goodness, what an adorable, calm, beautiful question. Omega consideration. Though I don't see anything in the items, I peek a Reno and see that there's an artist, which is a title. In the items, there's an X, no determiner before it, and a name right after. This is going to activate exactly what I want. A falls, C falls, D falls, because since there's no determiner here, I'm not going to separate them with anything. Easy peasy. B is the right answer. I'm going to check this omega. Nothing pops. Nothing pops here. I'm going to look for consistency with lists and bridges, and that's where I'm going to fall in love with this dash. I know that this dash leads a little homey because with photographs to powerful effect, I love the way that sounds, and the thing under the bridge seems to describe the thing before it, but where do I put this bridge when I'm in this environment? It's either going to be B or C, and B gets my right pick because From Hair to Grass Sculptures is describing, well, the items they described. In this weird position of C, it's like to separate it with this dash, to put it outside of the dashed off phrase. It doesn't feel like it would be describing the interviews and the items they described. It feels like the From Hair to Grass Sculptures would be describing the photographs as if the photographs are constituted of hair to grass sculptures. Absolutely bizarre placement of that modifier. We keep cruising. Omega convention, I see that these are verbs, but this is a little bit sneaky. Let's say we have a singular, let's say we have a neither, and let's say we have a singular. I'll bias the odd man out now. Maybe you thought it was punctuation because commas are appearing and disappearing, but we've seen these before, and we know what to do in this environment, which is to bias one of the comma guys and just go looking for maybe there's a bridge somewhere, and there absolutely is. Read over this entire sucker. American, abstract, artist, Richard, Sarah, assembles. This would create, A and D would create two verbs in one clause with no coordinating conjunction, verbs that tell me when, and that is unacceptable. This comma would separate a verb that tells me when, intends from its subject, unacceptable. Ride with the bridge. Conventions, I know that they're verbs again. We love verbs. We've got a singular, we've got a plural, we've got a singular, and this plural is what we're going to bias, but we're going to go looking for our subject. We track all the way back and we land on the notion of toxins increase, and that's a beautiful thing. Transition questions, we're out of there. 4 minutes down, we love that. We see this guy hanging out in the center. We can't help but move him to the start and start grabbing. Many historians agree that he was exaggerating when he claimed to have invented. However, no one can deny that he was remarkable. No one can deny that he helped shape. So we've got contrast there, easy peasy. We've got another transition question. Let's go to the start of the sentence that we seem to be in. The differences between the first edition and the other edition are extreme, even by his standards. Some critics regard the are extreme, even by his standards. Some critics regard the two editions as two different novels altogether. This seems like it's an amplification. It's not, in other words, because it's not the same idea packaged. Slightly different. It's emphasizing so much so that is what I like to think of for certain environments of, in fact. Another logical transition. This one too is chilling it to the end. So I'm going to kind of move him to the start and see what's going on. We've got, there were ideas circulating, percolating among British scientists. The theory of natural selection was obvious. So it might not have been a coincidence that they arrived at the concept independently. Because it was the obvious next step, it wasn't a quinkydink that they got there at this that they got there independently. This then, though sometimes sequence of just following is the only one that's going to give me what I want, because I don't have contrasting ideas. It was obvious, so of course they got there together. Moreover, this isn't a vacuous and they have to be providing a new point, but this seems to be the result of it, and we're not exemplifying it almost for the exact same reason I just entailed. So absolutely awkward choice of then, but everything else doesn't work. I want to talk about cows, apparently. Researchers examined the sleeping and waking habits of a group of dairy cows to determine if the cows' patterns of activity suggested, if that suggested that there were these three words. The researchers wanted to determine whether the cows are most active in the daytime. Oh, this is in other words, right? These are helping us to determine the complexity of this previous thing. They just want to know if they be sleepy babes or popping around doing something active and fun at night. We'll emphasize a similarity between these waves. They both travel beneath the surface. I love that, but I'm going to keep checking. They travel away higher. That's disgusting. That seems to be, the higher rate of speed seems to be enforcing a negative. Spreading out from the focus of the earthquake. This is just one. They start at the same point. They behave differently. D and B are ones that I could cash out to some sort of similarity, though they focus on contrast. I'm just going to make sure A is true. Do they both travel beneath the surface? S waves cause the ground to move. Oh, and that secondary entailment. Do it cause it to move? Absolutely. P waves expand the ground, causing it to move quickly beneath the surface. So they both travel faster. Everything's true about A, and we are going to pick it. We're going to indicate the California red-legged frogs classification category. On the FW list, which includes this thing, are classified as either endangered or not endangered. That seems to be a definition for the list. I don't know where he falls. The red-legged frog appears on the, okay, that seems to give me something. According to the FSW, the red-legged frog is in the endangered category. These both seem to do it, and I see the difference seems to be at risk versus endangered. So I'm going to go looking to know what's real. The FWS keeps track of all at-risk species. Oh, I realize this isn't giving the specific classification category. This is just the general heading. B falls. C seems to be a beautiful choice. It's saying that they're in the endangered. I read D, likely to soon become endangered, which means they're not endangered. That obvious to me is a disagreement of fact. The California red-legged frog is classified as threatened, so I want to factor the matter. Do they be endangered, or are they threatened? Right here. The red-legged frog is likely soon to become endangered, right? They are not already endangered. Liar. D, a generalization about the materials used in DHOW replicas. So I want focus on materials and a generalization about those materials. When I read a traditional material that was used to stitch together the holes of ancient coconut fiber. This is just one material. One material, a traditional. I want materials. I'm going to take that for its face value. I like it, I guess. The ancient DHOW was a sailing vessel used primarily for trade. No, that's not about the material. That's how it was used. A generalization about how it was used. Although most material used in DHOW replicas are traditional, some modern. A generalization about the materials. What's the generalization? Most are traditional and some modern. I torn between A and C, but just from experiencing so much, they both feel like quality generalizations. It's just that A is focusing on one and it says materials, about the materials. Yeah, I don't know. It's not about replicas is about the materials. It's got to be C. Contemporary ship, blah, 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 blah. No, this is trash. That was the mix up and I found it and I think I nailed it. I want to decode this. I'm going to read it partly because it is overshadowed. So signal element, context clue. That seems to be positive, or like it's a negative thing. It was overshadowed, so it sucked by the logic concurrent. And we've got another signal element, so we'll keep looking because it essentially maintained the status quo. I do see this signal element here kicking me forward over here, but I think that's just going to define status quo, which I know means nothing changed. So it has a... I just had a little coughing fit. Forgive me for that. We don't have the time. It is a weak place, right? A low place, partly because other things happened and nothing really changed. The enduring would mean it was positive. No one's arguing about it because it doesn't matter and it wasn't loud, right? Nobody cared. I'm going to look for, recover from the cough. Repudiations argue that repudiations use of hand and this colon's going to be exactly where I'm going to get my money. I'm going to look to the right side. They exemplify the artistry involved. Then we're going to go with this awkward make manifest in this one. Ooh, I see a colon senior citizens, but I don't think that's going to help me. The long-standing trend of overemphasizing teenagers and young adults in social media, they do something to this. So my signal element, I'm going to kick me past this, right? Because the ing is a signal element, but it's going to kick me past this for my context clue. Scholars have recently begun to expand their focus. So they're not just doing this anymore. They're not making the problem worse. They're fixing the problem, redressing the problem. They're not making it worse. Oh no, disputing. What does this mean? All bets are off. You do whatever you want. You get this wrong. Don't feel bad. These are so hard. The multitude of Paris seems to be dressed in blue every day, but Sunday, when, for the most part, they put on an unbelievably festive black. Here they were now in blue, disputing every inch our passage with the wagons, hand trucks, and the bursting baskets carried out. They're just in their way, right? I don't think that they're actually doing these things, asserting possession of our passage. They're just providing resistance to. They're just in the way. Okay, that's all I got. What's the function of the underlined sentence? Turning away from the landscapes painted in the expressionist style. Changing. We've got changing. Style. That's defining a style. Style definition. He started doing new. So let's see if we can fight our fight before we start looking to the left. It elaborates on a preface, sentences. I don't want to look about a transitional moment in his career. I love the turning away as an aspect of that. We'll leave that on the table. It provides information about his travels. Now, I have no idea where he went. Get out of my face. It recounts a moment in his personal life that enabled this. It recounts. I would want a detail of this, but this is just a change, which when they say a moment in his personal life, everyone's like a girl broke up with him and he started crying. So that's not what we're looking for. It presents evidence that calls into question the previous sentence's characterization of his development. It seems to be A, but I'll read the previous sentence. The painter returned to the United States after Europe underwent an abrupt. It's A. It's demonstrating that. Let's read this and see if we can fight our fight. There's not much to summarize. So I'm not going to. Tends to focus on the most militant, outspoken figures in the movement. So this trend, they usually focus on the most militant figures in the movement. It presents a trend in scholarship. I love that first part. Let's see what B's putting on the table in the first part. It identifies an aspect of the movement that the text applies. So both of these are fine. So I'm going to have to fight my fight in the second part of these things, which is going to be tough because I can imagine, text claim, it wants me to look on. The movement that the text claim has been reevaluated by researchers in light of his work. So does this trend change? So we've got to read. We have to. No other choice. Scholarly accounts, definition of the movement, tend to focus on the loudest figures, making it seem uniformly radical. This dude has shown, however, that if we shift our focus toward the way the movement manifested in comparatively low-profile neighborhood institutions and projects, we see participants espousing an array of political organizations. No, so we have no idea that researchers have changed their minds because of what he said. We don't have like two layers of clapping back. So it identifies an aspect of the movement that the text implies was overemphasized by scholars. Oh, this is the juice. Due to their own political orientations. No, I didn't see any scholarly bias being presented in this. It describes a common approach to studying the movement that, according to the text, obscures the diversity of the movement's participants. We see participants, an array. Yeah, I really love C. It's gorgeous, but I'm going to take a swing at D just because I love understanding. As simple as that. It summarizes the conventional method for analyzing the movement, which the text suggests creates a misleading impression. Yes, of the effectiveness of neighborhood institutions and projects. No, this has lost the plot. This is not what the ending part is saying. The conclusion of this was to build to this moment diversity of movement, not whatever this is claiming to be presenting. Why are some of these critics skeptical of the concept behind this thing? Let's find out. This thing, which was completed in 2014, a pair of residential towers. So it's an according to based on, so we're looking for a detail, so we don't have to summarize too much. We want to become familiar with the text. Covered by vegetation has become a striking symbol of sustainability in architecture. He intended his design, which features balconies that are home to hundreds of trees, to serve as a model for promoting urban diversity. However, here we go. faced skepticism, skeptical. This is it. Critics note that although the trees used were specifically cultivated for the project, it's too early to tell if they can thrive in this unusual setting. Okay, now I've got it. Some essential aspects of the design are difficult to adapt to locations other than Milan. The design's difficult to adapt. I dig that. We seem to have the concept here. The plant life on this ended up being less varied. No, there's no statement about varied. It was whether or not it could be survivable. The construction was no less environmentally damaging. No, it was just like a failure of like the plants, right? If the plants can thrive, if the trees can thrive. It is unclear whether it can support the plant life. Oh, D is the right answer. That's supported right here. What did I misunderstand about A on this read? Some essential aspects. Well, maybe the scope, right? Trees versus tree of design are difficult to adapt to locations. Oh, my bad. Other than Milan. We only have this one place. You see, the problem was somewhere else coming to this place. Couldn't adapt here. So I should have one trees, one aspect. Scope was all wrong. And also, there's only one place. D is the right answer. Gorgeous. What's the main idea of the text? Oof. Let's summarize this final chunkerino. But. He notes that natural resource industries, the BB cycle hurts local currencies and increases developing countries' vulnerability, makes more vulnerable. I changed that because vulnerability increases seems impressive to shocks. It makes more vulnerable to shocks. Imagine I said that, which makes for uncertainty that investors do not be liking. Yo. So the boom bust cycle hurts local currencies. Natural resource in the boom bust cycle of the BB cycle of natural resource hurts local currencies and makes more vulnerable to shocks, which blah, blah, blah. Uncertainty that investors do not like. Let's read a little bit more. She has identified a negative correlation between the share of developing countries' economies derived from natural and those countries' receipts. So low extraction, a negative correlation. Oh no, sorry. She's found high extraction led to correlated with low investment, low foreign investment. So because negative correlation just means that the variables move in opposite directions. The other thing could be true. This may break your neck. This may break your neck since money matters which funds, which skills, which corps are great at. However, so let me add that. Let me fix that. Good for her. And let's start chewing. Solid investment to the start with, but you see how silly I'm being. I really understand this text. Although it may seem surprising that foreign investment decline in developing countries as natural, I don't know if it's decline. They would just be scared to do it. But that decline happens because resource extraction requires initial investments far too large. That's just not true. They absolutely have the money. It's not that it's too large. It's just that they're averse to those kind of investments. They could supply it. They're just afraid to. Although developing countries tend to become less dependent on foreign investment as natural resources make up a larger, I already disagree with this. This statement of dependent is like they're consenting to this process and they're saying, I don't need you anymore. But it's just that as they invest more and more, they become disgusting, right? It's like I'm less dependent on a girl's attention when she finds me repulsive and doesn't want to deal with me. So I already disagree, but I'll keep reading. This change may not occur if the boom-bust cycle of those industries destabilizes. Yeah, this is messing up everything. This second part, this change may not occur. This change may not occur if the boom-bust cycle of those industries destabilizes. That change is completely dependent from this. It would even get worse if B gets off the table. Although one might expect that foreign investments would increase as natural resource extraction makes up a larger share of developing. Absolutely true. I love this. This is my first part of my summary. The opposite happens because heavy reliance on unattractive conditions. I love unattractive conditions. The first part aligns with the first part, and then this absolutely gets my investors do not be liking yo. Although foreign investors tend to avoid initial investments in natural, foreign investment may be increased significantly as the country stabilizes. No, there's nothing pushing forward to the future. It just ends on this like doomer statement. I am not going to make these extrapolations about what the future would bring when I don't even know what today brings. See the right answer. Agree with which statement about atmospheric NH3? Let's start investigating atmospheric NH3. I propose that, okay, NH3, biosignature. NH3 equals biosig. They checked this rock, planet, atmospheres, anything likely couldn't reach detectability in the absence. So rock, planet, NH3 does mean life. Then we keep reading, but the team also found that on mini Nepis, gas planets, but with it, NH3 does not mean life. Okay, I think I got it. Let's start chewing. Its presence is more likely to indicate that a planet is a mini Neptune than the planet is a rocky planet? No. Then that the planet is a rocky planet that could... No, it doesn't. This is okay. The planet is a rocky planet that could support life. But then this part is what's making it weird. It's not, we're not proving it's a mini Neptune because there's this biosignature. We're just checking to see if there's life on that thing, which would be faulty on the mini Neptune. It's absent from a planet that's not a mini Neptune indicates that the planet probably doesn't. Okay, too many negatives. I'm going to hop past you for a second. It should be treated as a biosignature gas if detected in the atmosphere of a rocky planet, but not if detected. I love this. This is absolutely straightforward. Does mean life, does not mean life, but not if. Absolutely. Let's go back to this juggle. Its absence from a planet that's not a mini Neptune indicates that the problem doesn't have life. So the planet probably doesn't have life. If it's not, if the signature is not on a planet that's not a mini Neptune. So I think it's one thing outside this. So it doesn't mean life if it's not on a rocky planet. But all they're saying is that this thing could prove it, not necessarily that it has to be there in order to be there, or in order for there to be life. Additionally, I don't know if this is the only kind. This is like making a sweeping statement that there are these only two types of planets. And I don't know if that is my only option. So I'm in love with C, and B is making me juggle 75 negatives, and I don't even think it's close to being right. Like, I don't know if not having it would prove that there's no life. I don't think that assertion is supported by the text. I can't find it. It doesn't reliably reach high enough concentrations in the atmosphere of rocky planets or many No, that's not true. We already have evidence to refute that. 9, C. Move on. We want to illustrate the claim. What's my claim? Contradictory feelings when experiencing the sights of the day. Through primrose tops and that sweet bower, the periwinkle. We have to be serious, move fast. That seems all positive. The budding twigs spread out of their fan. I said I'd be serious. To cast the breezy air, and I must think I'll do this also felt positive. The birds around me hope it didn't play it. Their thoughts I cannot measure. Okay, maybe that's negative, but at least the motion which they made, it seemed to, no. They don't know why they're doing it, but they seem to be having a great time. This is scary. I heard 1,000 blended notes while I in a grove sat reclined, and the sweet mood of pleasant thought brings that thought. Absolutely. Woof. Data from the graph that supports the conclusion. Modeled radial growth of sugar maple trees. What's my claim? Although they found that negative, they found climate hurts growth. Conclusion that nitrogen would more than offset the effect as long as it is moderate and not extreme. I'm doing this mostly so that I can zoom in, and we don't need that. I think I'm in a good spot. I've got all of my words, nitrogen, extreme change, nitrogen, extreme change. I don't think I need anything in the text. It seems to be a pretty honest text besides the crazy juggle that we have here. So let's start a diggerino in. Let's dig. So growth with nitrogen under the current climate. Growth with nitrogen under the current climate exceeded growth with nitrogen under moderate change. Growth to growth, nitrogen would more than offset the effect as long as it is moderate. No, I don't like you, but the latter exceeded growth without nitrogen. Of course it would, but this is gross. Growth without nitrogen under the current climate exceeded growth without nitrogen under moderate change, but the latter exceeded growth with nitrogen under extreme change. I don't like how I'm comparing within. Growth without nitrogen under the current climate exceeded growth without nitrogen under moderate change, but the latter exceeded growth with nitrogen under extreme change. That's not going to prove it, right? They said that under extreme things would change. The decrease from this to this doesn't prove anything. Growth with nitrogen under moderate change exceeded growth without nitrogen under moderate change, but the latter, growth with nitrogen under moderate change, exceeded growth without nitrogen, but the latter exceeded growth without nitrogen under extreme change. I like this one more than I like this one. Let's come back to A. Growth with nitrogen under the current climate exceeded growth with nitrogen. I don't like this intra-category comparison. Let's read D. Growth with nitrogen under moderate change. Growth with nitrogen under moderate change exceeded growth without. I love this. With change, it's better than the status quo, but D's the right answer. C was just making a weird comparison. We're going to keep reading. Directly supports the researcher's hypothesis. Let's go to the end and see what we've got. The hypothesis is that TMAO reduces water compressibility. Water compressibility is reduced by TMAO. I want to see this relationship. Water molecules, let's just immediately jump in. Water molecules found to be impervious to TMO, even if, impervious, we want to show that there was an effect on this. Examination of TMAO's molecular structure, that TMAO molecules retain their shape even as pressure increases. We want to see how TMO affects water. We seem to have a positive relationship between these two things, so it seems to be okay on the superficial glance. A positive correlation is found between concentrations of TMO and the rate at which, I'm going to skim for how fast something happens between the dips and happens. I don't have anything about speed, the rate at which falls. Analysis of water molecules structures under high pressure reveals that hydrogen bonds are more stable when TMAO is present than when it's not. When I look at my thing, I'm trying to prove that TMAO isn't just good under depth. I want to say that TMO has effect on water. Now, I do recognize that water is hydrogen bonds, but I don't want to rely on my own science here. So I'm going to check the text. I'll start at the start. Under normal pressures, water molecules form this thing stabilized by hydrogen bonds. With high pressure, such as what can be found, destabilization occurs. B is going to fall. B is just seeing that TMAO is robust, but it doesn't speak to anything about water compressibility. I cannot access that with the data alone, so I'm going to pick D and move on. 5 minutes. What do we got? More than enough time. We're going to support the conclusion. Simulated change in aquifer, annual aquifer input and irrigation output. If precipitation concentration increases, the climate model predicts. Conclude that the concentration of precipitation into fewer events result in higher number of dry days, triggering more irrigation. But this change in this feels like what matters. All of that matters. Concluded that concentration of precipitation into fewer events would result in higher dry days, triggering more irrigation, but that this change in irrigation is sensitive to baseline concentration. I'm going to go immediately into the items. If something isn't there, then I'll start looking to the text, but hopefully this is a lot. We see that irrigation matters bigly. If baseline precipitation is somewhat concentrated, the amount of water being used for irrigation will increase 0.4 for surface water and 0.9 for groundwater based, whereas the amount of water entering aquifers will increase 11. So this is moving away from irrigation, but it's all I've got so far. I don't like him, but it's all I've got so far, so I'll put the cursor on A. If baseline precipitation is somewhat concentrated, water use for irrigation will increase only slightly, okay, whereas it will increase 9 for surface water and 7.9. I like this. Let me just double check, increase 9, 7 irrigation numbers, somewhat concentrated, only slightly. I love this. A false because it doesn't give me the thing that I wanted about irrigation. If baseline precipitation is somewhat concentrated, the amount of water entering aquifers will increase. Once again, I don't like this conversation about aquifers, while the amount being used for irrigation will 0.4. So this is just one lens. It's not engaging with the sensitive to baseline concentration concept, right? So that fails for that lens. If baseline precipitation is somewhat concentrated, water use for irrigation will decline. No. I'm pausing because hopefully this positive isn't a negative change and I've screwed up everything. No, it would say a negative change. We have a percent change. It's positive. Whew! Momentary panic there. Pick it, move on. We're on our last question. Logically complete the text. The researchers were thusly therefore not surprised. They were not surprised. So they were the same findings, but by what? Let's read the previous sentence and see what we've got. The researchers noted that previous studies focused on other carnivores have shown that giving snacks at regular time happens in animal jail. Zoos are great. I'm just popping off here. May inadvertently, accidentally makes novel, repetitive, i.e. purposely repetitive, novel, obviously, novel, repetitive behaviors since they don't need to think. So, other studies have shown that when animals are in animal jail, they don't make novel, they weren't surprised to see more of the same repetitive behavior. All right. Bones from carcasses provided to captive lions, ones in animal jail, showed signs of excessive gnawing, which is going to be purposely repetitive behavior, beyond the point. Oh yeah, that really solidifies it. Whereas bones from prey hunted by wild lions didn't. Yes. As is common in captive settings, facilitates this. Yeah. In the other place, they didn't have to do this thing. That's why they noticed it, right? Feeding behaviors, exactly. A is gorgeous. During feeding episodes, captive male lions showed much more aggression. No, they're just like tweaking out, chewing on nutrients. There's no such thing as aggression here. When caretakers placed food in boxes that were cognitively demanding to open, captive lions showed repeated behaviors similar to those that while stalking prey. Captives. No, they were not altogether surprised. So they want more of the same. A is the right answer. We're not trying to show a mimicking behavior in the wildlife of this thing. They just want to see more of the same. Captive lions showed a stereotypic behavior pacing in their conclusion, whereas wild lions, no. If they both have stereotypic behavior, that destroys their entire study, right? Stereotypic behavior is just about being in animal jail, and when you're in animal jail, you do crazy things like gnawing on bones past the point of extraction. Thank you very much. Good night. GG's. No re.